How you doing? And welcome to the second episode of Process Preparation and Performance. I'm Bill. I'm here with JR. JR, how you doing?
Good. Very good.
We got a lot of interest from our first podcast talking about the program. We've had coaches email us. We've had coaches reach out and ask if they could repost this podcast. I've had people reaching out on social media with Twitter and stuff. Just so you don't have any problems finding us, our Twitter handle is MOHS Football. We're based out of Missouri here. You can reach out to us and we'll be happy to talk to you about anything. The website is mohsfootball.com. That is mohsfootball.com. JR, how many platforms are we on for this podcast?
So right now, we're definitely on SoundCloud, which is where we sent it out to begin with. And then Spotify has approved us, so I've got a link up on our website if you want to listen on Spotify. And then as of right now, iTunes has us in the review process, so hopefully within another couple days we'll be on there. But thanks to everybody who's listened. We've had 38 unique listens on SoundCloud, 2 on Spotify. So the first one obviously gave people something to do over the quarantine we got going on here. But here before long, hopefully we'll be on iTunes, which would make it, even easier for people. And then I've got all the links up on our website if anybody wants to go there.
Awesome. I got an interesting shout out on social media. A guy direct messaged us and said, "Hey, you're cheating. You can't use computers. You got to figure all this stuff out on your own." I kind of took that as a compliment to you and the program and me and what we were able to do thinking outside the box. So kudos to you, man.
Well, he knows who he is, so it'll be like, a Harry Potter thing, he who shall not be named or something. So
that's right.
Good stuff, though.
That's right. Good stuff. I laughed a little bit over that. I laughed a little bit. So last time, we talked about the program. We talked that it's an Excel-based program. So with the guys who are doing no huddle and trying to go as quick as you can, what are some tips that you developed when you were putting that information in to help you stay up with the speed of the game?
Basically, all you need, kind of like I mentioned in the previous one, is as long as I got down distance yard hash, I can, for the most part, get it right. So it's good having a spotter up there to help you. But really, to just get the thing to somewhat, process data, that's all you need.
We also dove into the R code, which is the receiver code last time. And we're going to break that down for everybody this time. And then we're going to get into one other topic. I'm not going to give it away yet, but we're going to get into one other topic that I still remember where I was sitting when we came up with this other topic. And I'll tell that story when we get there. But JR, break it down for us. The receiver code, what is it and how do you use it?
So the receiver code, what you're doing is dividing the field horizontally just into areas. So the areas that I came up with were the sideline to the numbers to the hash, and the hash to the ball. And then obviously that's reciprocated on the other side. So one of the hardest things initially was trying to place people, whether or not, were they really standing on the numbers or were they not, or were they really on the hash, were they not? And so what I had to come up with was just a hard and fast rule. They're either standing on it or they weren't standing on it. One thing I found out pretty quick is I always had to go left or right, no matter which way the offense was going, because if not, I was going to start getting confused. So The letter system that I used was the sideline to the numbers. If they're standing in there, that was A. If they're on the numbers, it was B. Between the numbers and the hash was C. On the hash was D. And between the hash and the ball to the left-hand side of the offense was E. And then working it on across to the right was just F, G, H, I, J. So that helped out quite a bit as far as me being able to come up with a letter system that I could use into Excel to make this work and place people. And probably the hardest thing I would say, or what took the longest amount of time, was getting the data sorted the way it needed to be sorted. Because even though you place people there, you've got to have a way of saying, okay, well, if they were standing in B, what type of formation was it? And it's a lot easier if you say, well, it's 2x1 or 3x1 instead of calling it, 400 different words. And so I had to get Excel to sort the thing based on how many receivers were out there, which then started, I remember me and you having the conversation of, well, who is exactly a receiver? Are you going to count H-backs into this? Are you going to count tight ends into this? What if somebody motions? And basically what we came down to was they have to be what you would consider a traditional receiver. Take the tight ends out of it, take the H's out of it. I don't care if the running back motioned over into D, doesn't matter. Just where are the receivers standing at? Which made it a little more, I'd say, simple to deal with, but you still have all these variables going on, like, well, does motion matter with it? Does it not matter with it? And really when it came down to it, it was just where are these receivers standing? So the way that I had the kind of Excel workbook sort this was in order for it to even tell me that there was a possibility of a giveaway here, it had to happen at least 6 times. And what I mean by that was not that a 3x1 formation happened 6 times, but that those 3 dudes to the trip side and the dude to the solo side were actually standing in the same spot 6 times.
Same spot.
Yeah. So it'd be like A, C, E, J. Well, that had to happen 6 times in whatever film that we got on people. And so as a result, if it did happen 6 times, I basically had to tell it to tell me that 5 times either run or pass happened. And so if it was only 4 out of 6, it wouldn't tell me that that was a possibility of something being given away here. It had to be 5 out of 6, which is about 83%, which is pretty high. So it took more time, I'd say, to set it up to sort all of that than it did really to come up with the idea. But there at the end, when we get the scouting report and I'd print it out, it'd give me little alerts that would say, hey, in a 3x1, if so-and-so is standing here, it's run. And then that's what we would take and me and you'd discuss and whoever and then take that on to the kids. So, it was a lot of work, that's for sure. It took a long time to get this thing to do it because the initial setup process took hours to get it, to get Excel to go, okay, it's 3x1. So who's the most important and why?
Let's look at that for a second because, when we're looking at a defensive call or we're preparing our defense, we're in that preparation phase during the week. So often it's, hey, if they're in this 2x1 set, whether that's pro, whether that's 2 right, however you define it, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, whatever that may be, right? We would always say it's not where they start, it's where they finish and how their play is going to be determined. This kind of looked at it from an opposite standpoint and said, it's only where you start. It's only where you start. And if number 2 in a 3x1 set is on the numbers, we could tell you what % run pass it was. Let's talk about some of the examples we have because they're really kind of amazing, to be honest with you, because one of the things I put out on my Twitter feed today was you need to be able to respond to things and not react. What I mean by that is if you have a response, it means you've prepared and you know what your performance is going to be. You are ready for what may happen. If you react, you're just making a decision that's not based on preparation or your process. So your reaction to that is probably going to be at a lower level of performance than had you have had a response ready for what was going to happen. And we do this in business, we do it in sports, we do it in our daily lives raising kids. But really it comes down to, are you reacting to the situation? And we know oftentimes that people react poorly. Or are you responding to it with a clear, thought out message? It may still be urgent, but there's some clarity to it so that you can make a good decision. So tell us about some of the examples of this R code and how it's helped.
So one of the things, if anybody's been over to our website that I did, and I alluded to it in our last episode here, was I took the Alabama Clemson national championship game from a couple of years ago just as a test case, and just to kind of show everybody how this thing works. And it was out of a 2-by-1 formation. And what it ended up saying after all the data was put in was the outside receiver to the two wide receiver side was the key. Where was he standing? And so even though that wasn't directly applicable, to us with high school, at least it gave everybody somewhat of an example of, this works at a level that's even higher than ours. So as far as our standpoint, I won't mention their names because we beat them. But, there was a team several years ago we played and we went down there, and this is when we first started to really mess with this thing. We said, hey, if you guys see the outside receiver, it doesn't matter what set it is, and he is standing outside the numbers, it's 100% run. Because I think it came up in the film breakdown that I was doing. It was like 20 out of 20. And so It was something that we taught the kids. The kids recognized it. And if you do some thinking about it, if you're on one hash, say you're on the right hash and he's the dude to the solo side and he's clear outside the numbers, a little bit of common sense comes into play there with, I don't think they're probably going to throw it over there. But this was for any formation that it dinged that, hey, they're just going to run it. So that was one of the early examples. A couple of years ago, we were playing somebody that liked to run around, a lot of trips routes. And it came down to, it was the inside receiver where the third receiver was. And we taught it to the kids, during the week. And it held to about, I think, 80, 90% true during the game, which helped out quite a bit. So that was example. Yeah, that was example out of the 3-by-1. It's a lot of this stuff. I was kind of thinking before we went on here, you really have to like to break down film to do this stuff. And for whatever reason, it's something that I like to do. I've read a lot of stuff on it. I've got a copy of, the Belichick's dad's football scouting methods, which if you like to break down film and you haven't read that, you need to read it. Because a lot of that stuff from book. Way back, it's fantastic. And he goes into so much detail. It's amazing what those guys could do without using computer software and whatnot to help them process the information. But it's good because it gives you an idea of, how much detail do you really got to go into if you really want to figure out what somebody's doing. Because I can't remember, more than maybe one or two examples over the years where I'm like, I really have no idea why they're doing some of this stuff right now. But there's always something there. You just got to find it. And I think with the R code, it kind of opened up another avenue of, okay, well, I guess this is what they're doing. Even though it may come out and say, well, trips is their number one formation. Well, that's great to know. But who's the dude that is the most important to watch here? And if you can train yourself or train, your other coaches or your kids to see it, then all of a sudden stuff starts to slow down, which I think is the goal of everybody.
Right. Well, and it also gets to the point, and, we didn't really take it to this level at high school, but if you had enough staff and you had somebody else to help you, you can now sort that data to, is their dude in a trips formation at 1, 2, or 3? And why is he there? Now, we all know that people try and get matchups and do those kind of things, but if you could take it to that next level, kind of have next level thinking and go, hey, if number 15, their second best receiver, moves out of the slot and moves into the solo side, why are they doing that, right? Some of those things we've picked up from some of those books doing the scouting is, take away this guy and make this guy beat you, which everybody uses, right? But you mentioned the Belichick book, and I read that book too. And, I picked up on the fact that they had the same scout going and watching every team. Mm-hmm. And one of the stories they tell in that book is that a guy watching one of the service academies happened to notice that the tackle had his right heel up only during a certain play. I mean, we're talking about a level of detail that, we love to get to. And funny story is, you and I used that. We found a team we were playing against, and sure enough, the tackle's heels changed, run versus pass.
Yeah.
And we just told the DN that week, we're like, hey, man, if his heels sit like this, you know what's coming. And it held true the whole time. And there's countless examples like that, but it was just, you and I are both kind of nerds for this, and we don't sleep very much. So these are things that we're not doing from like 9 to 5, right? These are things that we're doing like after midnight and everything. So, but the ARC code is amazing. Kudos to you for developing it and putting it together in a system where it's super simple to read. It's once it gets going, it was interesting and kind of awesome to watch the coaches go, hey, what'd the ARC code show this week? Where's, does this guy, is he sitting in a certain spot, right? And again, going back to the podcast, kids learned it. They used it in preparation. And because of it, they had a higher level performance. And that just works, So kudos to you for that. Good job, man.
It's all in today's work.
Let's talk about the next thing. And I'm going to tell the story. So a few years ago, we're having a garage sale at my house. And my wife goes somewhere. And I am sitting at the garage sale talking to you on the phone, and we're trying to come up with other ways to break down offensive football, right? And it's kind of interesting because we were pretty much totally defense that time. Now we're pretty much totally offense at this point. So I think it's helped us a lot. But the one thing that we came up with, and this will be kind of our last technical topic for the night, was there are only 3 ways to run the football. 3 ways. That's it. And when you and I came up with it, I think what it did is it made us look at how to stop people and how to stop using, well, is this an A-gap play? Is it a B-gap play? Is it a perimeter play? What is it? So, JR, tell us those 3 ways, and the only 3 ways in our mind that you can run the football.
So if you really think about it, you may go into we were, I think, kind of cognizant of this fact that we had so much stuff broken down with the run game. Well, they're trapping here, or it's boot, or it's this. And, you end up with this 15, 20 play long list of stuff. And it's like, well, what do you really focus on? And what we came up with, you can either do this one of 3 ways. You can run it inside, you can run it outside, or you can run option. So when I'd go through and tag plays, instead of putting trap or whatever, it does not matter. It's what's the inside percentage, what's the outside percentage, and then your option game, which I think we even added the zone read stuff into that. And it makes it a lot easier because, their inside run game's 75%. Well, what do you need to work on in practice this week? Inside run. Whatever is going on there, whether it's inside zone, whether it's trap, whether it's counter, which I don't like pulling people. I think it's stupid, but that's a whole nother discussion. But that's just my own personal thing. But it made it so much easier for us, because I remember me and you talking about it. And I think initially we came up with like 5, and then we're like, well, and I don't even remember what the other 2 were. But then it was like, it doesn't really matter now. Okay, then it's inside, outside option. That's it. And it makes your film breakdown so much easier.
Well, it absolutely does that. And what I loved about it was they think they're a triple option team, but the kid hasn't pitched to his left all season, or he hasn't pitched it at all, or he hasn't run it. He's only going to hand it off or pitch it. Right? He's not doing it. And we took that and we used it to our advantage, because I can remember a number of times you going, this team is not an option team. They're a handoff team.
That was that was a playoff game that we had. And, it was like it's an option team and they're masquerading as an option team because all they do is hand the ball off. And the only way we'd have found that was with inside, outside option, just because they weren't ever getting on the perimeter to option anybody. So it definitely helped. I think that game was over by half, which kind of miss those days occasionally.
Yeah, right. I think we threw 8 touchdowns that game. That was pretty nice. But
it was on a different note,
fun time. It was a good time. On a different note, inside, outside, or option, and maybe we'll put up a poll on Twitter or something like, do you agree? Do you not agree? Or whatever. But I think when we get to the next podcast, and we tell people the next fact off of that, which is there's only 5 ways to block it. And that's it. There's 5. And you and I have studied this, and people are going to be like, no, that's not possible. I could do this. I could. Guys, I'm telling you, it's inside, outside option, and there's 5 ways to block it. And we'll cover the 5 ways in the next podcast, but maybe we'll throw up a poll or something that says, do you think there's more ways to run the football, or we'll figure out something. But,
yeah,
this whole COVID thing is going crazy, right? I mean, seriously, we got people that are staying inside. We got schools that are canceled. We got people trying to reinvent ways to learn and do things. And I got to tell you, we're not very good at this podcast thing yet. There's going to be a lot of good come out of this, because we're going to find other ways to do things. And one of the comments that I always laugh about that you tell me from time to time is, we don't need a meeting when it could have been handled in an email, right?
I can't wait if some particular person listens to this. He's going to want to kill us both, but it's all good. So,
no, but it's true. Even in my daily business, I have meetings to talk about what we're going to talk about in the meeting, right? And I'm like, what are we doing?
Right.
So I think what this is really doing, what this whole slowdown is doing, is allowing us to step back, look at our processes, look at our protocols, determine if we're actually, and I hate to go back to it, it sounds cliche, are we preparing right every day, and are we getting the value out of things that we want out of things? Because somebody's going to come out of this whole thing, and there's going to be things invented that we don't even know are here right now. And some people are going to come out with ways that they're like, I never even thought about that, and they're using it. So whether it's the program and people want that, whether it's inside, outside option, whether it's the R code, or when we tell you next time there's only 5 ways to block it, you could disagree with us, but it's in that disagreement that we foster more discussion, and we actually start to learn. So, the whole thing was, we put this thing together so because we couldn't go to clinics and do that, and we're all stuck inside right now. So I think it's awesome. We're going to keep doing it. Episode 3 will be dropping pretty soon. You said you had somebody ask if they could repost this on their website, and we're going to be on, you said Spotify and what else?
Spotify, SoundCloud are on right now, and then hopefully iTunes. But yeah, right after we put it on SoundCloud, somebody asked if they could repost the feed, which I was like, okay, go ahead. But I'm hoping we can get some guests on here soon. There's some avenues I think we can explore there.
Oh, I agree. We hope everybody stays virus free, right? Say a little prayer for those people who are affected by this, not only with their health, but emotionally and financially and whatever else. But let's keep the podcast rolling, JR. Until next time, there's only 5 ways to block it next time. And it's not how you react, it's how you respond, right?
Yep. See everybody later.